Welcome back to the Top 6 Show, sponsored as ever by NordVPN. Download their app now or sign up to protect all your devices online using the QR code on the screen or click on the link in our description below. You should not be using the internet without protection. More on them a little bit later. Lots to talk about today. Ten Hag sacking after being embarrassed against City and giving, for me, one of the most outrageous interviews I've heard from a Manchester United manager in my life. We're looking at Arsenal and we're looking at Spurs, who are setting up a sensational title race for us along with Manchester City. Chelsea embarrassed at home again. Nobody expected it, but they lost. I think it's only 2 home defeats in the Premier League since February, I believe. We're going to be going into that in a bit more detail as well. Plus, well, we won't mention the Ballon d'Or. We know the results already, which is really weird that they just tell you ahead of time. Like Fabrizio knew the Ballon d'Or winner before Messi did, I think. It's crazy. I don't really understand what they do anymore, but lots to go into, lots to delve into. Please smash like buttons. Please subscribe to the Football Terrace and turn on that bell notification. How are my panel tonight? Everybody good? Everybody well?
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Good.
How you doing, Staff? How you doing, Staffy?
I've calmed down a little bit. You know.
Patrick, what the hell was that just then?
Hey, that's fireworks for being top of the league. Look at that. Boom.
Hey.
Being top of the league.
Man, I told you, they're having a parade after 10 games. These Spurs
You know what?
fans
I'm
have
starting
seen
to
you.
realize
Stop
Sam
the
was
count.
right. I'm starting to realize he was right for not liking these Spurs fans. The more they speak, and now the more I'm getting triggered by them. Not necessarily you, Patrick.
I was going to say,
Fireworks,
wow.
maybe a little bit
Wow.
OD, but you know, it is what it is. Listen, anything triggers me these couple of days, so I'm sorry. Bear with me. If I do anything in the next 2 hours that reflects any types of anger, I apologize.
And we will move on to Chelsea United and the like a bit later. I wanted to start off, though, with Tottenham, because, Patty, from your point of view, it was another win. Difficult game at times, but you came out on top. The best start to a Premier League ever, the best start from a new manager in the Premier League ever. And in terms of the title race talk, saw this statistic put out today. It's the first time in Premier League history 3 teams have 24 plus points after the opening 10 games. Squawker have said, what a title race this is gearing up to be. Is that belief now starting to set into Tottenham fans after another big and important win?
Oh, man, it's a tricky one because, like, the form is really good. Like, 8 wins out of 10, 2 draws, no losses. That is really good form. And some people are saying we haven't played anyone. We've obviously played Arsenal, Liverpool. Brentford away is always a toughie. Crystal Palace under the lights can be tough as well. They gave us a tough game. We weren't at our best on Friday, but we got the job done. I'm annoyed that we didn't keep a clean sheet. I feel we got robbed of a clean sheet because that was a definite handball when Ayew controlled it and it obviously brushed his hand. By the letters of the law, that's a handball. VAR looking at it. What's the point of VAR if they're not going to make calls like that? Luckily, it didn't cost us. But going back to your question, for me, I still think it's too early. Like, I don't know too much about this Tottenham team in terms of how we're going to react after we lose a game at some point. Inevitably, that will happen. What happens if we go on a sticky run of losing 2 or 3? How do we bounce back from that? I haven't seen enough, but all I can say is we've done what we needed to do within those games that we played. I'm seeing more and more of players that I'm starting to really like and fall in love with. I think Vicario has been excellent. And I've been saying that after Alisson, for me, he's the best goalkeeper in the league from what I've seen this season. Obviously, Van de Ven is looking solid and like a real centre-back. Romero looks brilliant. You got Son back in scintillating form. Maddison's come in and looked as good as any number 10 in the league. And yeah, you obviously got Basuma, Sars looking better and better every day. He's only 20 years old. Sars 21, Udogi's 20. So you've got the components of a real strong team. For me, the depth is a big concern, though. If you're looking at what happens if one of our centre backs gets injured or, it's suspended or is out for a couple of games, you're looking at obviously what happens if Maddison drops. And I know this is the same for every team, but if you look at the other teams around us, they've definitely got better options off the bench. So, yeah, there's still a few unanswered questions. It is really early. I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but it's the truth. We're only 4 months in. I need to see a bit more of what happens like after we go through a sticky patch, but fingers crossed we don't go through that. That's all I can say right now.
Patrick, do you think you'd be in a better position if Kane didn't leave you? Because lots of people have been saying that, you know, Kane leaving, maybe that's improved Spurs, maybe it's more about the team rather than the individual. Do you buy that, or do you think actually if you had Kane, you might be in an even stronger position?
I think it's a bit of both, Nobbins. It's a really good question, because when I saw us play against Shakhtar Donetsk, and I know they're a decent team, they're a Champions League caliber team. We obviously scored quite a few. I know it's pre-season, but Kane was involved in a lot of those goals. But then I also believe that if Kane was there, he would be the focal point and he would still be doing everything, and we'd be too reliant on him. Where now it's a team game, and every game you're seeing different players step up, you know, and show their quality. So it's a bit of both. It depends if Andrew was really strict with Kane and said, you don't need to drop deep anymore. We got Maddison, we got Basuma, we got other guys that can obviously play that role, just stay in the box and do what a striker does, then possibly. But if he was doing everything that he was doing before, then no, because we'd literally be looking for Kane every game. Like you could see last season and the season before, within the first 5 minutes, you could tell how the game was going to go. Because if Kane looked sharp and on it, you could tell we would get a result. If Kane wasn't firing, the whole team wouldn't fire. And now, obviously, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I don't know. Good question, but we'll never know, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, I think you guys... I understand the title race talk for some people is a bit too premature, but there are a percentage of Spurs fans who... they really want the kind of validation from rivals. They want to be bigged up. They want to be told, you know, how great they are. And look, it's been a phenomenal start, and give yourself a foundation now to put yourselves into the title race. 26 points is a brilliant start to the season. This notion you've played nobody, I think, is unfair. You have played Man United, you've played Liverpool, you've played Arsenal. So out your 10 games, those three, you've gone away to Brentford, which can be a difficult place, away to Palace, which can be a difficult place for a lot of teams. So I don't buy into this notion that Spurs have played nobody at this point. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what you guys do. Can you keep up with Arsenal, Liverpool, who are coming in strong? And of course, Man City is still everybody's favourites. It was kind of interesting yesterday watching our game against them, seeing most people supporting Man United for once, because they obviously don't see us as a threat, but they obviously want City to drop points. And I very much understand that. But yeah, like as I say, I think you guys have started well. I haven't really... the disrespect Spurs have got, I've found a little bit strange. Like, you've played nobody, you've had the easiest start. It's a flash in the pan. Maybe it won't last to this level. Maybe at some point, it will fade off a little bit. To be this good though, 10 games in, like Big Ange deserves a huge pat on the back, because a lot of people, including myself, already put my hands up and said I was wrong, doubted this guy so much because of the level that he'd managed at before, the perceived mess that Tottenham were in. So to do what he's done inside these 10 games has been absolutely brilliant, really.
Listen, Terry, I was like you. You saw me on here come out, said it on Last Word on Spurs. I didn't believe in Ange at all. And I'm not going to sit here and now pretend I did because we're doing well. I couldn't see it. I looked at his Champions League run when he was with Celtic, and every time they come up against a bigger team, he didn't really have the answers and he got found out. And yes, he had done really well in different leagues, but obviously the Premier League is a different beast. But credit to him, man. He's come in and just really hit the ground running, and the players believe in him. The players are playing for him. Obviously the fans are behind him, and that makes a big difference. But like I said, I really want to see... I don't want to tempt fate, but obviously we need to see what happens once we do go through a sticky patch. Then I'll really understand more about the team. But right now, what he's doing, and there's people out there saying, no, you guys are lucky, you haven't played anyone. And when you look at the stats, if you look at the underlying numbers, they're there or thereabouts in terms of we're performing at the top level with all the other teams in terms of goals scored, average possession, chances created, all of the stats that you would look at, goals conceded, that with the Arsenals, your Liverpools, your Cities, your Brightons, whoever's there or thereabouts, the numbers are just as good. So yeah,
Patrick, I asked Kate this question the other day. Obviously, I know you've got a good 11. I rate you 11. And like you've said, your bench ain't strong. Is there anyone that you particularly looking at right now to bring in January, like based on your budget and obviously how Levy tends to work? Is there anyone that you've thought about that you'd want to bring in?
I'm looking at like Chang or Hang Lee. I probably butchered his name.
The Wolves guy.
Yeah, I'd love him and love him.
Over Neto.
Neto as well as another one. But you're looking at, we definitely need a centre back, because obviously if Romero or Van der Ven gets injured, as you can see, the rotation options are really, really rubbish. And for me, we need a striker. Because Richarlison isn't hitting the ground running. Son playing through the middle is brilliant, but what if something happens to Son? I don't trust Richarlison over a stretch of game. So I would look at a centre-back and a striker as the two options. I think our midfield is decent enough. The wingers, you've got a few good wingers on the bench as well, but striker and centre back for me is the main components that we need. 'Cause otherwise, I think our starting 11 can give anyone a game, but the options on the bench are not good.
So all things considered with Tottenham, all things considered, so where do you see yourselves finishing at the end of the season? Are you staying in that top three? I don't think they win the title, but I don't think anyone truly believes Tottenham Hotspur are going to win the title. But do you reckon you're staying in this top three or dropping down to fourth or fifth based on who's around you?
I think we're finished third or fourth. I was saying fourth after a couple of games, and now I'm looking at it and I think we could finish third or fourth. I still think Man City win the league. I'm still going to go, even though Arsenal haven't impressed me as much as they did this time last year, I still think Arsenal the second best team. Then it's definitely Liverpool, and then I think it's Tottenham. But I think that top four, there'll be a big gap between fourth and fifth. When I look at the rest of the teams, like your Newcastles, your Brightons, your Villas, yeah, they're good teams, but they're nowhere near as good as the four I've just mentioned. So I do think that will be the top three. I think it will be a very tight race between Liverpool, Arsenal, and City. And I just think over the course of the season, we'll probably fall away a bit. And that's just my honest opinion. And I know some Spurs fans do believe that we are in a title race and we can win it. And credit to them. If that's what they want to believe, then that's cool, man. And I'm all for it. But me personally, if I'm being real, I don't believe that just yet. But I think that we've turned a massive corner considering, the team I've watched over the last 2 years compared to now.
I think if you're a Spurs fan, you've got to be like buzzing. Like, I mean, Patrick can correct me if I'm wrong, but surely you haven't really had any hope for 4 years or whatever. Now, I think if you're a Spurs fan, the future's bright, really. We all know where the issues, where the improvements can be. Like, Patrick, you outlined them, more depth, maybe another options out wide or up top. But the fact that Ange has only had a pre-season, has only had, 9-10 games, and already implemented his style of play, and he's only had one transfer window. This time next season or the season after, with, again, keep hold of the core players in the squad and a couple more additions, as I say, the future's bright for Spurs. Whether they will go on to challenge is another question, but it's just after the dross of Mourinho and Conte, it's just a fantastic time to be a Spurs fan, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm enjoying watching the games again. I'm going to the games excited. When I tune in, I'm excited. Even though against Palace, it wasn't a great game. If that was the first time you're watching Spurs, you may have been like, oh, what's all the fuss? But you could still see the performances. You could still see how good Mickey van der Ven was, how good Romero was.
Do you know what, sorry to interject on that, but that's just normal. If you go back to just even last season when City did a treble, they didn't win all their games in scintillating style. Every single team will have, it just included in the league, the invincible season, United's treble winning season. You're going to have between 5 to 10 wins that are like that. It's just it's only in the social media era where we over scrutinize and over analyze. We sort of attack teams because of recency bias, really, for not being brilliant in every single match they play in. It's so atypical for that to be the case, especially in the Premier League, which is the hardest and most difficult league that there is. The bottom teams, we know it happens every year, the bottom 4 or 5 teams will always get a scalp of a number of big teams over the course of the season, far more than you see in the other top leagues around Europe. So, I think Spurs have started phenomenally well. Their fans should be very, very proud of that start indeed. Viewers, please make sure like buttons have been smashed. Please make sure you are subscribing to the show. Gunnar Paul here says, the man Chatty Patty on the panel. Great to see. Terry, an awesome panel as always, and love this show. Hope all the panel are well and blessed. Thank you, Gunnar Paul. I appreciate that. Spurs have had no penalties awarded either. Is that right?
Yeah, no penalties. 22 goals scored, no penalties. So that's really impressive when you look at it compared to, say, and this isn't a dig at Rory, Arsenal have had 6. I think Newcastle have had 3. Liverpool have had 4, but scored 3. So you look at all the other teams, they've had a lot of pens. I say a lot, but City have had 3.
And you done well. You've got 22 goals from open play. That's very, very good. Very, very good start for Tottenham. Speaking of not very good starts, how close? I mean, we will talk about the game as well in this segment, but how close do people feel Erik ten Hag is to the sack? Because, I mean, there's just a report that's come out since we've been talking. This comes from the United stand, who do, in 2023, have connections at the club. They know a lot of people. It says a Man United insider has confirmed that Ten Hag looked shot, the same as Ollie did towards the end. It was another embarrassing performance from the team yesterday. Yes, we know City are superior to us, but it was just poor starting lineup, ridiculous decision to take off Amrabat. And then I think to add insult to injury, he does an interview. And if people haven't seen this, brace yourselves. He was asked the question, when will you be able to play the same football with Man United that you showed at Ajax? And his response was never. We will never play that football because those are different players. This is also not why I came here. We are playing different football than I showed at Ajax because I have to, because I can't play the same way. And for me, he went on to say more. Me personally, hearing that, I understand it's a different group of players, so it's never going to be identical. City don't play like Pep's Barcelona team, per se. He's changed and he's evolved. But there is still a basic fundamental. Ten Hag was brought into Man United to bring, we all thought, to bring that style. We've been asking a question now for 18 months, not quite 18 months, 15 months. When are we going to start to see it? But now we have the answer, Staffy. Now we know why we're not seeing any of it, because he is not trying to implement it. So the question remains, not only should he be sacked soon, the question is, what is the point of a Ten Hag?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'll ask you first as a United fan.
Terry, if I hire you for your hosting skills or interviewing skills, whatever you want to call it, I'm like, you know what? Terry's a good host on his channel.
Brilliant
he's a brilliant host. You know what? I have an event going on today. You know, I want to hire Terry because I like the job that he does. I speak to you, Terry. We agree on it. We shake hands. Deal done. You come in and you're not doing the job that I hired you for because I saw how good you are on your channel, but you're not replicating that. I'm like, Terry, what happened to that? And you're like, oh, no. I'm never going to do what I used to do on my channel here. I'm going to do something else. But why the hell did I hire you for then? Because I didn't see the something else. I hired you for what I saw you good at. This is the same thing this manager is doing. And listen, I understand there's different styles of football. Not every manager can replicate the style at his previous team to the new team exactly. Not even Pep really did, as you said, what he did with Barca with City. It's very, very similar, but not the exact same thing because of the difference of personnel. But the fundamentals are there. If you are telling me that you can't play Ajax football here, which is fine. I don't think, by the way, Ajax football is a thing. It's just possession-based football. Let's just call it for what it is. It's not rocket science. Ajax football is not rocket science. Many teams before Ajax and after Ajax have done that style of football. Okay? The thing is, if you're telling me you can't do that and you say it's never, but then you can't control games against Sheffield, against Brentford, against Burnley, against Galatasaray, against Copenhagen, against Wolves, against Forest. Did I miss anyone? I mean, these are just like the teams that we consider.
Against Sheffield? You said Sheffield, did you?
I started with Sheffield. Trust me, that I still remember that. Remember that. If you can't have a style of play against them, then I'm sorry. What did we hire you for? Because you need to keep balls. I don't care. Listen, I don't care if you play direct football, if you play possession-based football. I don't care if you're City, if you're Liverpool, if you're Arsenal. All of them play different styles. You know what's the one thing in common between all of them? They control games. They go against their opponent, and whatever their style is, they dominate them from minute 1 to minute 90, and they see out these games easily. And this is what big teams do. You have yet to show me anything. And I tried to give him the benefit of that as much as I can. I'm listening to what he's saying, but I don't see it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe when these players come back, he's going to do X, Y, Z. Maybe when he signs these players, he's going to do A, B, C. And the guy that comes out and tells me, oh, we're never going to play Ajax football. So what are we playing? Because I haven't seen anything. It's not like you replaced it with something better. I kept saying he's trying to play like Liverpool because when you keep speaking about a directness, and Tom, you're laughing, but you know it's true. When you talk about a team being dynamic and direct and transition and all that stuff, the only team you can think of really that was very successful at it is Liverpool. Because you guys have done that for about 5-6 years now, which is why you went toe-to-toe with City for most of the time. If you're going to try to play that style of football, I need a better application and I need better personnel. I can't expect you to say, I'm just going to use yesterday as an example. Everyone can see that yesterday we wanted to be a little bit more transitional because we can't keep the ball against City. But you're the same person who signed someone like Anthony who can't play under transition. So you had to put Bruno, who is a 10, who is shit at carrying the ball, and you put him on the wing. So we're on transition, and you put someone who doesn't have the pace, doesn't have the dribbling, and doesn't have the ball carrying ability, and you're putting him on a wing in a game that you're supposed to play transition. How am I meant? Like, how can I not look at you and be like, you know what? You have no idea what you're doing because you're saying one thing and you're applying it in a different way. Same thing as Mount. I didn't want Mount, and everyone told me don't be negative and wait on it. And I was like, you know what? I'll wait. The guy's been on the bench for 3 games, and then he plays it. He puts him on the bench yesterday. By the way, Don, we were speaking about it earlier. That video, it's so cringe when he told him, oh, he wants him to be an important player for us this season, and then he tapped him on the belly.
Slapped his belly.
Him on the belly.
Cheers,
and then
Gaffer.
you leave him on the bench. Yeah, cheers, Gaffer. Thank you for leaving me on the bench and playing McTominay ahead of me. Oh, by the way, you wanted to sell him on deadline day. And I'm supposed to look at this guy and not say this guy is confused. This guy's out of his depth. He's completely out of his depth. And today, honestly, I didn't think I could get any more angry. But then I wake up and I see that tweet first thing, and I'm like, bro, are you taking a piss right now? Should I like just sign off Twitter or something? Like, what the hell are you even saying, bro? Like, and yesterday he says after the game, we applied the plan perfectly, something like that. What plan was it? To give him the 3 points? If that's the plan, I'll applaud you because you did it very well. I'll tell you that. You actually gave him the game when you didn't need to, because they already had the game. And he's like, you know, let me make it easier for them. Let me take out my number 6. Here we go, transition football.
That was crazy, by the way. Is Amrabat injured or something?
No, he's fine. I want to ask a question. I want to throw this out to the panel because this is still where I wouldn't say confused. My mind about Ten Hag has changed. Why have I defended him since he's been at United? I expected him at some point to introduce his style of football. The fact he said he isn't, I don't want him. I as a Man United fan, wanted him for the brilliant football I saw his team play, which, by the way, has fallen off the edge of a cliff since he left. So I don't think he's a bad manager. I don't think he has bad talent idea. I stand by all those things. He is just not playing the style of football that the players that he has purchased are good at doing. Why do I know they're good at doing it? Because they've played under him or they've played in that style of football before. It's a mess. The question is why? Why does the panel think that he isn't trying to implement that style? Is it he's trying to do something clever? I don't know what that is. Or do you think this is a directive from the club? That's not how we play. We're Man United. It's got to be direct and pacey and on the wings. What do you think has led to this? Because it is, all banter aside, it's proper weird.
I think
it is
when he can't do it.
I think
the part where I disagree with it, the part where I disagree with him saying I would never do it. You've spent 2 summers signing players for that style. They do not really shine in any other system but a possession-based tiki-taka, whatever you want to call it, system. Lisandro Martinez, Amrabat was prided on his possession and how good he was on the ball.
Tom, he signed Eriksson because he said he used to play in Ajax and he gets the Ajax system. Yeah. And then a year later, he told me, I'm not trying to play Ajax system.
I'm not exactly. So
he contradicts
I think Erik ten Hag is chatting out his arse. I think he's tried to do it. He's looked at the players and went, "Don't work.
They can't do it.
Doesn't work for whatever reason. Maybe he doesn't feel like it translates well to the Premier League or whatever. But he just looked at it and went, "Don't work. Doesn't work." But I'm not going to go down with my shit.
Tom,
so
let me stop you there. Tom, let me just stop you there though. And this isn't to contradict you or anything. This is just to ask a question. So, what are the games when you've seen him? Normally, when a manager tries something and it fouls, we see what he's attempting to do. I don't remember the games where he tried it and fouled. I don't.
I also agree with you.
The second question is, I get that on day one, but he signed 14 players. Mm-hmm. Surely, if you've signed 14 players, he would be able to get at least he'd be able to make us pass the ball better. Like I don't want to defend Ten Hag here, but I don't believe he's that dead of a coach that he can't make us pass the ball better.
But Terry, though, one of the main things, this is what I was saying to Samuel the other day, yeah. One of the basics of football, right, is you need to put out a balanced lineup. Do you know what I'm saying? This guy doesn't seem to ever put out a balanced lineup. Playing Bruno on the wing is just redundant. The guy doesn't work there, right? If you're going to play anyone on the wing, at least try Mason there, because he's played that role quite well for Chelsea at times. I didn't really like him there, but he could do a job there, better job than Bruno, right? You know, playing Bruno and Mount in the same team, it just doesn't work. You need to start only one of them, right? If you're going to play them in midfield. Even at the beginning of the season, when I'm seeing Mason Mount playing in the pivot, I was like, bro, how long has this guy been watching Mason for? Because Mason doesn't work in the pivot. He needs to be further up. Do you know what I'm saying? Play Amrabat at left back. Just not adding that balance to the team. It will never help the team develop and play how they need to be playing, Terry. So it goes down to the in-game management and the tactics. It's not helping the players. It's not helping the players because you're not balanced enough right now as a team.
I agree. This comment here says, I think you're taking his word wrongly. He means that he needs to adapt the system to the Premier League and he can't be the same as Ajax. I get that. But why is our passing so awful? That there are basic fundamentals within the way he coached Ajax. And by the way they play football at Bayern Munich, where he was a coach of the B team, but their football is identical from their under 8s right through to their first team. So it's, if you've coached there, you know what you're doing. The way we touch, our movement, speed of play, our shape, all of these things are basic footballing fundamentals that translate. And none of it is there. And that's why, for me, I believe him wholeheartedly with his comment. I don't think he's tried to implement it. Whether he's been told not to, or whether he has decided, you know what, I want to try and replicate what Fergie did. And by the way, Fergie played exponentially better football than we're seeing. It's a myth that he didn't. It's crazy. This is a weird comment, though. It says, Terry, you are turning against Ten Hag sooner because he's not British. When it was Ollie, you was deluded defending him till the end.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that famous British.
Yeah.
But Terry, like, even
all those goals he scored for England.
Terry, even yesterday, I'm looking at your team, and I was looking at like in the second half, and it literally looks like the players don't understand what they need to be doing on the pitch. They don't look well drilled. It looks like they've got no instructions to follow. It just looks a mess. Like, I'm looking at every single player on the pitch, and they just don't understand what they're doing. It looks like freestyle football. I call it grenade football. You know what I'm saying? It looks like freestyle football. And
it all makes sense. After hearing what he said, it all makes sense because we haven't seen enough of an improvement. And I don't really want to defend the players. And I'm not going to name any players because people get really in their feelings. But I am not surprised they're not running. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that even out some of our best performers over the last 3 or 4 years have regressed. I am not surprised that Casemiro started to look worse. I am not surprised that everybody's gone backwards. Why would you want to play how we're playing? Imagine you are Bruno. I'm not giving him any passes here, but he's told you going on the right. He knows he's shocking on the right. There must be a part of him that thinks, why are you doing this to me again? And this is the bit that's annoying me and making me angry. I don't think we've bought a load of crock of crap. I think we've bought some really good players again. But there's a reason that this club falls apart. There is no one direction that everybody, in terms of the ownership, the board, the players, the coaches, the recruitment team, the new manager, whoever it is, we are never all pulling in the same direction. And the club is disjointed, and that manifests itself on this football pitch. And I will say this to everyone saying, why am I turning on Ten Hag? I would sack him today. However, Man United fans, don't delude yourself into thinking that sacking him and hiring a new manager will fix us. Because I did say this about Ten Hag. The only bit I've got wrong is I thought he'd make us play better football. We will never be totally fixed until the people running us are gone. And do you know why? Imagine letting Ten Hag do this. The point you made earlier, Staffy, is right. If you hire someone because of what their CV states and what the body of work that's come before, and they join and they're just doing something completely different, you fire them, you sack them, you move them on. Our owners are just giving him more money to spend and go in the wrong direction. Or they're the reason we're playing this way. It's one of the two things. Either way, it falls back on them. And for me, I see zero. Our season's finished. Our season is done, and it is October. It's painful to see. I don't see how he turns it around. The players ain't playing for him. There's no system to work from. There's no foundation to move on from. And he does. I agree with what the United standards put out. He looks depleted. He looks beaten. He looks absolutely finished. And it's gutting because I really did believe in him as a coach with what I'd seen of him before. And the crazy bit is I bet he leaves Man United, goes somewhere else, and is really successful. And that's going to be the bit that hurts the most. The same as most players that leave us. He'll do the same thing. I don't think there's a bad coach in there. I just think there's something about our club. When people come here, they're poisonous. It's poisonous.
Yeah, I think he's lost. I think Ten Hag's lost, and now the players are lost because they're like, well, especially the new players are like, well, I came in and thought we were going to play like this, and now we're not. I think, and the reason I think he's lost is because I think it's very, very difficult to go from the way that United are playing and have played in recent years to the way that he played at Ajax. Like, that's an insane transition to go through. And I think that middle area, without kind of falling off a cliff is quite difficult to do because you've got to bring in all of the right players. And he doesn't have those. And he's had to stick by players that I don't think fit that system at all, like Rashford. And I think I use Arteta not to like gas him, but just because I know it better. When Arteta came in, first season he had to be pragmatic and not play at all the way he wanted to play. And I think Ten Hag did that last season and it worked very well. But he was always building towards the end goal. And I don't think Ten Hag has been doing that. Or if he's trying to do that, I don't think it's working as well. And I think that's where now he's kind of like, he got third and a trophy last season. And now where does he go from there? Because if he wants to make that big transition to the way that he wants to play, I think the results are going to get worse before they get better. And I think he knows he probably won't get that time. And Arteta did get that time. Like when we came 8th, he was given that time. But Ten Hag won't be given that time. And I think that's the issue.
There's a difference between Ten Hag and Arteta, though. Arteta, listen, the results were probably worse than what we're seeing right now. Let's be honest. However, you can tell because we reached the end of the tunnel with Arteta. You can see that he was okay with losing badly, and I mean badly, the first 2 years to eventually implement what he wants to do. Because listen, I wouldn't say he failed the first 2 seasons because clearly now he's done a decent team. Whether he wins the league or not, that's the ultimate success. We won't talk about that. But he believed in something. He had a vision, and eventually he got to that vision. At least is a style of play, and that's the thing that he achieved. Ten Hag has proven to me more than once. I used to call it adaptability. Now I call it cowardness. He's a coward, and he showed that in multiple instances. The first 2 games of last season, when we lost to Brighton and we lost to Brentford, he played a different style than what he played against Liverpool and moving forward. But he noticed in the first 2 games that he can't play a certain style of football. Let me adapt for what I have right now. That could be a good for short term until you get some fixes, until you get some signings. Here's the issue. He's added a lot of players since, but then he can't play the style that he originally wanted. So now he's saying, oh, I never wanted to play Ajax football anyways. Well, I beg to differ, because when I saw you put Eriksen in the false 9, that showed me what you used to do with Tadic and Ajax. That's the way you used to play. When you put Eriksen in the 6 against Brentford and he was getting overrun by their midfield, that's something you also do with Ajax. You try to adapt too much to what you have to the point that you eventually abandoned your original plan. And that's why he found himself caught up in between 2 ideas. Because first you wanted Frankie de Jong, then you wanted Casemiro. But then a year later, when you want to go back to the style that you could have had with Frankie de Jong, it's too late because you recruited too many players that are going to play the new style that you're playing, not the first 2 games. That's why when you sign Anthony, think of it, the first 2 signings he wanted, what was it? Other than Eriksen, who was for free, it was Lisandro and Anthony. These 2 players played a certain style in Ajax. When he went to play transition to accommodate for Bruno and Rashford, and you can argue Casemiro and other players, there's some players that he already signed and players that he already has that can't play that way. So now, not only does it look bad that some of the players that are in this team that can't play his style of play, now some of the players that he signed originally can't play the style that he's trying to do in the second season because you tried to adapt to some players, but you forgot about the ones that you signed. Casemiro, when he was being put in the 6 in the beginning of the season, trying to play him like he's a Basuma or a Rodri, well, he can't do that job. Listen, we can talk about the midfielders not being balanced and whatever, and they should be closer to him. We should be playing with a 10. All that is fine. But the fact that you're misprofiling Casemiro shows me that in the middle of you changing your thoughts and the style that you want to play, you forgot that some of the personnel that you signed can't play the way that you want to move into right now. Same thing as Anthony. You brought in a player who's not good in transition. We all watch Anthony here, and we can tell transition football is not his best ability. On the possession, you can argue because he was good at it at Ajax. Has he done magnificent with us? No. But even in certain games when we have possession, you can see his best abilities, not his best abilities, but better abilities. You signed too many players from 2 different styles that you tried to combine, but now they're getting lost. And this is why the Mount signing itself was the biggest indicator to me. And this is why I stuck by why I said from the beginning, there's no way you wanted to sign Frankie de Jong, and when it didn't work, you're going for Mount the next season because both are not similar. That shows me that somewhere along the way, you abandoned your original plan and you want to go with another one. And now he's seeing that even Mount that he signed for 60 million is not working because he's misprofiling him as well. To me, that on its own, by the way, the Mount signing on its own, that's a sackable offense because you spent 60 million on a player that a lot of fans did not want, and you insisted with it. And we were like, you know what? Prove to us that you're a genius and we're the idiots. And he didn't prove it. And you're leaving him on the bench in the biggest game of the season to play Scott McTominay. If that on its own is not a sackable offense, I don't know what is.
I think Casemiro.
To be fair to him, he's got to play his top scorer. He's got to play his top scorer in a Manchester derby.
I think Casemiro is the defining one. I think he realised last season he wasn't going to be able to play the way he wanted to play, and therefore he knew that Casemiro, for the way he was going to have to play that season, would work, and it did work. And I think without Casemiro, you don't get top 4, you don't win a cup. But I actually think that was a short-term, almost panic buy to suit the way that he knew he was going to have to play last season. Whereas I actually think he'd have been better off buying a lesser player that would have fitted how he wanted to play long-term, missing out on top 4, not winning a trophy, but having that more slow progress towards the end goal of what he wanted to build, rather than just, this isn't going to work, throw in Casemiro, which has ultimately, it's had one all-right season, but long-term it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and it's I get where you're coming from, Staffy, 110%, and I think the Mount thing for me fits into that. Onana again, a decent shot stopper, but we're not seeing him. We're not seeing his footwork utilized. In fact, he's barely finding people with his passing for one reason or another, and I believe that's down to shape and movement. He's just not. What way he passed that ball against City in the Champions League final compared to how he was passing the ball yesterday was completely different. And you also look at it this way with Anthony. I didn't. Not only did he misprofile Anthony in the sense of he can't play transitional football, the Glazers are partly to blame because he wanted Anthony when we could have got him for £40 million. But then when the price went up to 80 million, and by then you decided to change your style of football, you're wasting £80 million on a player that can't do the role that you want him to do because you change your style of football. These things are sackable. And again, if you'd have said yesterday, like, I'm trying to implement this is what I'm doing as a plan, I would have probably given him a bit more time because I don't think necessarily sacking a manager is going to help us. But knowing that he's not trying to implement the football that made me fall in love with his style of football, there's no point to him. There is 0 point to having him.
And I agree with you. Listen, I don't think sacking the manager is automatically going to make us a better team. And actually, let me rephrase that. It's not going to make us a top 4 team this season or top 5, whatever you want to call it. We're not all of a sudden going to go on the run and contend for the league. That's not what I'm saying at all. However, that does not mean that I need to see a manager who is clueless on what he's doing, who's abandoning his plan, who's playing some of the worst football we've seen in a while. That says something because I've watched some horrible football the past 4 or 5 years, playing some horrific football, wasting money, and not getting the best out of most of the players, especially the ones that he signed. All that is not an excuse for me not to sack him. There's a fine line. There's a gray area between being a very good team and winning the league and contending for the league and being where we are right now, because we should be better than where we are right now. I 100% believe it. Do I rate all the players that we have? No. There's some of them that I want gone, and I've been wanting them gone for a while, and I feel like they're some of the reason that this manager is failing. However, it doesn't mean that I need to sit here and accept the fact that, hey, if we're not going to go for the league, let's just keep a crappy manager. I can't do that. You still need to try again. You need to go again, get another manager who's going to get the best out of the players that you have, because it is very evidential and very, very clear that this manager does not know how to get the best out of the players that he has and the players that he
Graham's
signed.
local, you know. Graham's local, bro.
Are you done being a joke here?
Graham Potter, he's there.
You gave me too much of your garbage. Listen, you gave me Mount. I didn't want him. Don't give me Graham.
Bro, you're what's the guy that works closely with Jim Ratcliffe? He wanted him at Nice, so he's definitely going to be an option. I'm not even bantering. I'm being serious.
Do you know what's funny about potential managers that come in for Man United? Genuinely, we shouldn't try and sign a manager who's considered elite because we're not run well enough to quench their thirst. We're just not. But equally, if we go for a middle-of-the-road manager, which is the way we're run, we spend loads, but we don't spend it wisely. We're not run very well. If we get a middle-of-the-road manager to match the ambitions and the behavior of our board, the fans will cry. I genuinely mean this. The high expectations for our club should remain in terms of the way we're run. But we have got to lower our expectations of what we expect these teams to deliver under our current ownership. Man United fans have got to do that. And the pressure should be the owners to run things better. Not, I know we run poorly. I mean, me and Lee Gunner had this argument a few weeks ago where he sort of said, you can't lower your standards, so you've got to demand the very best out of your team. Said, do you think this team can achieve that? He was like, no, not with your owners. Then why would I expect the team to win? It's nonsensical. The energy has to go towards the owners and how we're run. Until that point, I'm quite happy with a Graham Potter. I'm quite happy with someone who's middle of the road. It's not going to work either way, but I'd rather that than another top-class manager that gets us excited and we end up feeling fouled at the end. Genuinely, I'd rather Sam Allardyce come in than Zidane, because at least my expectations won't get up. We will kill Zidane at Man United. We'll be calling him Zinedine Allardyce after a few weeks. Big Zinny. It's going to happen because every player, every manager, every academy player who has come into this club, come through the ranks or been purchased in the last 10 years has regressed and gone backwards. That's why, as much as I think it's right to sack him because he's not going to implement what we all wanted him for, I get people want Rashford out. I get people want Bruno out. I get people want Sancho out. Anyone who is deluded enough to think we improve as a football club with just those actions has been asleep for 10 years. None of it overall works. It's deeper than that. However, that doesn't mean you should persist with this manager because the players look dejected. I don't really want to defend them too much, but we know they can perform better because we've seen it. All of your teams have been beaten by these players on a number of occasions. They can do it. It is plausible, but yeah, it's painful.
So Terry, the question I've got for you and Staffy then, when do you think that it's going to get to the stage where it's untenable? Because I agree with you, look, like changing the manager.
When we lose in Anfield, that's what happens. When I sit here and Tom here sits next to me and he dances on my grave when we lose to Anfield, that's when they're going to sack him. Because I've seen this, the last two managers, they always wait for us to get embarrassed by Liverpool, and then the manager is gone. It was Mourinho at first. With Ole, if you remember, they didn't want to sack him after Liverpool. They waited a couple more games until he got embarrassed by Watford, and then they sacked him. But it's happening again. Someone told me yesterday that the game that we lost to Liverpool at 3-1, when Mourinho benched Pogba, lost 3-1, and then he got sacked. That was the same date that we're playing them this season, December 16th. I'm seeing flashbacks, Larry. 6 years later.
We're playing them on the 17th this year. That's my birthday. So, yeah, it's going to all happen. This comment here from a United fan that says, Terry is smoking something. Allardyce over Zidane. Ten Hag only managed in a Mickey Mouse league. He won nothing. You've missed my point. It was a little bit sarcastic. But this is what I'm... And I don't mean it rudely, United for life. But there are too many delusional Manchester United fans that truly believe sack the manager and we'll be fine with a better one. And the reason why it pains me and it makes me cringe so hard I almost push my kidney out my arse is that this has been said of the sacking of the last four managers. And I was in a space today and there's people telling me that, no, Terry, we sack him, get a better manager. You were the same man that said that. You said LVG squad could win the league with a better manager. You said Jose squad would win the league with a better manager. You said Ollie's squad could win the league with a better manager. Man, I'm saying it again now. It's absolutely horrendous. I don't mean it rudely to this guy that's watching the show. I appreciate you watching. I don't actually think Sam Allardyce is a better manager. My point is that both will fail. But I'd rather not have expectations and get excited. Yeah, anyway. But yeah, I want to go to some of these super chats. There's been a lot that have come in. This one says, I'd take Elanga or Bebe back to get rid of Anthony. Lol.
You see how bad the standards are. Oh,
I know. When do you see the board making that decision? I think Staffy answered it right. Typically, it's when things look like they're dead and buried and they're over and there's no recovery. And what the most saddest bit is about our board, they always react once the season's over. What they really should do, again, remember, they know all this stuff that's coming out now before we do. So our minds will change for one reason or another when it becomes public or you see something different. They've known this. As soon as he said, I'm not going to implement my style of play, they should have sacked him instantly if they were good owners, but they're not. The Glazers won't sack him because they can't afford to, and the takeover nonsense rumbles on. What happened to this so-called Ratcliffe agreement? Well, of course, they're delaying it as ever. Apparently, since Fergie left, United have lost the same amount of games at Old Trafford compared to his 26-year period. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I
can't even laugh at any home records, boy, because Brentford and he's slapping us at home.
I know. It's true. It's horrendous. This here says United recruitment has been atrocious for years. The last 100% successful signing was Bruno 4 years ago. It started well, but that was genuinely the last proper success was RVP 10 years ago. You're right. No one's a success. And the thing with Bruno, it started well, but he's phased out. So in the end, it's an unsuccessful signing. Ten Hag, we're on the way up.
To the job centre.
Yeah. The mandate from the top can be that Rashford is the main man and you can't drop him. You can't play possession football with Rashford. Same with Bruno. Well, then the man has to walk away. If that's the case, then you've got to,
or coach them.
Or coach them. Like, this is the thing. This is why, this is coachable. But no, but it's not. No,
it's not as easy as that.
I know it isn't as easy as that. But where I disagree is I see teams with much less technically gifted players play better football than Man United. The fact that we can't do anything against Sheffield Uniteds of this world and the Burnleys of this world and Copenhagen's, that's where I look at this as beyond just, you can make those players play better.
Terry, genuine question.
You can't turn Rashford into Riyad Mahrez, different kind of players, but you should definitely be able to coach a team to be able to control the ball against Sheffield United. Surely.
That's true.
Terry, you know, with what you just said, so for example, De Zerbi at Brighton, their players are nowhere near as good as yours as a squad, but look what he's doing. Do you think if De Zerbi comes into your squad right now, he gets a better tune out of your team?
No.
He would, but he'd still foul at Man United. He'd still foul at Manchester United. I don't believe anybody would be successful with the way we're run, like what I consider success. I think he could make us play better football. I think Ten Hag could have done if he'd have stuck to his guns. I think it's doable, but you've got to be brave. You've got to be really brave and go through the tough, turbulent times. It's doable, in my opinion. I look at the Villa squad. I don't think there's very many players in the Villa squad that are exponentially better technicians than Man United, but they play a style of football that is light years ahead of us. That's just because the manager coaches them to be brave enough to do it. Burnley, I wouldn't sign a single Burnley player. They play better football than us. They just don't have the quality to put the ball in the back of the net. This is, for me, look, people can have their own opinion on Bruno, Rashford, and these guys. Just go and watch Bruno play for Portugal. Now that Roberto Martinez is there, playing a more progressive style of football. It looks quality. I watched their games on Viaplay. He looks good. He's never going to be Xavi or Iniesta, but he looks better for them than he does for us. And that's only happened in the last 10 games since the pragmatic, what's his name, Santos left. Like, there's players in there. Bruno, I kind of want Bruno and Rashford to be sold, to go to other clubs, and then they're going to kill it. And we're all going to, in 18 months, we'll go, oh my God, why did we sell him? I know it will happen. The same as Sancho will go somewhere and kill it. And we'll be like, why is he doing well? Because everyone dies at Man United. We are literally a graveyard. That is what we are. We should knock the stadium down and literally become a graveyard. That is it. That's all we are. Plus Ten Hag is 100% correct. We can't play like Ajax. Our players are no good and can't keep the ball. And we will never pass the ball well for 5 years. I understand where you're coming from, Ray, but the man has spent £400 million on his players. You should be moving the ball better. Again, I understand it from a certain point, but he signed 14 players. And we still can't part. I'm really sorry. It's not a good enough excuse for me, Ray. Terry, the standards that are being pushed to be accepted at United after Fergie left is shocking. I have watched United play back in the day. I have a Beck shirt in my closet because I love him. That's coming from a Gooner. It's a bit weird. I mean, I don't believe in wearing any other club shirts. I'm just putting that out there. If my daughter brings home a boy that does that, she'll be dumping him because that means he's a cheater. But anyway, the standards should be on the floor because there's no way we can win the league. So why should you expect it? It doesn't make sense. I don't, just because my standards are high, it doesn't mean I'm going to beat Usain Bolt in a race. I can have the high standards in the world. If there ain't the ability there to do it, it becomes irrelevant, my friend. But I really appreciate the super chat and donation. Ten Hag got the players to make a similar run to what he did at Ajax, but he just not able to deliver. He is a regular manager for such a big club, is what Chris, the American Magpie says. Correct me if I'm wrong. Club looks at CVs of the managers. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they actually have a CV like we all do, but I'm sure they look at something. I'm sure they have something similar. Erik Ten Hag dumb enough to take off Amrabat and talk nonsense after the game, or is he smart enough to do that so he can get sacked quickly and easily?
I hope it's the second one.
Staffy looks like a beaten man at the minute.
Staffy said strike 3 yesterday. He's finished. He's done. He's done.
Bro, I got people messaging me saying you got clipped by this channel and that channel. I'm like, good. That's fine.
In fairness, Elanga been better than our forwards. But of course, Elanga's left. He's gone to Nottingham Forest. I'm not saying he looks like a world beater, but he looks better there than he's ever looked at Man United. Rashford will leave and look better. And then,
because he found his level. Why is the talk about? And I know KJ. That's probably KJ's burner because he loves it. Like, can we stop glorifying him? The kid found his level, which is
it's still Premier League level still. But the point is, I'm not saying it means they're all going to be world class, but they look better than they did at Man United. Their touch looks better. Their confidence is there. The pressure's gone. All these players will do it. It's just the way it is. Terry, our CEO, said we're making good progress. He's a fool. He's a fool. They will only sack him if it's mathematically impossible. We won't make the Champions League. De Zerbi ain't it either. As soon as there's pressure to win, he folds, is what Luca thinks here. So Jim Ratcliffe is way more dangerous to rivals than Sheikh Jazim, but most Man United fans are too dumb to see it. The guy is laser focused on ripping up the football structure. I'll believe it when I see it. And I hope
he regarded as a disappointment in Nice because he's done that in Nice and it hasn't worked. Like, on like French football fans, like he's not that good.
Wait, so he's more dangerous. And listen, this is what it is. This is what that super chat said. He's more dangerous because he wants to rip up the structure more than a guy that actually wanted to buy 100% of the club and literally tear everything apart, including the stadium. But the guy who's in bed with the Glazers is more dangerous and he wants to put a new structure. All right, man. Thank you. You definitely got us there.
I don't trust it. The difference is that Terry is there's egos at United. Yeah, there's terrible egos. They need to be shut down. There is an easy way to spot what's wrong with Man United team. Compare how many Instagram celebrities United have to teams like City and Liverpool. Clowns. I don't really follow anyone on Instagram, but I'll have a look. It's a Madrid shirt, not a United shirt. Lol.
The Beckham top.
The Beckham.
Still, but it's another club, isn't it? Oh, I don't do it, my bro. I just find it cheating. I couldn't, even though I hate my club, I still won't cheat on them. Do you know what I mean? Loyal like that. We couldn't pass the ball under 6 other managers. So how are we going to start now? Well, we could pass the ball under LVG. We could. We used to hold the ball well. We moved it around well. We just didn't buy them enough quality to be able to penetrate. We needed players there, but we have been able to do it. That shows you, by the way, that you can change because the way we played under LVG changed. We started playing his style of football instantly. So
even under Ollie, though, you lot had attacking patterns with Greenwood, Martial, and Rashford.
Ollie was a decent, and I'm only saying decent transition, like coaching transitions. He was decent at that. He could do that pretty well. And it worked. If Ten Hag goes, be prepared to be bottom to mid-table because the players are done again. I hear you on that. This here comes from Jim, who says not only that, but Ten Hag made the most erratic, emotional reaction guy. He's captain. United squad has no leaders. Do you agree with that, Rory, in terms of there's a lot of people saying that Bruno Fernandes should be stripped to the captaincy?
Yeah, I've never hidden my... hatred of Bruno Fernandes. I think he's petulant. I don't think he's it's not that he's not a leader. Well, it is. He's not a leader. He's not a good leader. He doesn't lead by example, and I think it rubs off on other players. I think if you had a different captain, I don't think Anthony comes on and behaves in the way that he does, as an example. But when your captain behaves like that, then players like Anthony might think that it's acceptable, and you can say he's showing passion. Showing passion at 3-0 down in such a petulant way. I just think it's not the biggest problem at United. I think there are far more serious issues than who's the captain at the moment. But I definitely don't think it helps the culture. I don't think it doesn't help anything, that's for sure.
By the way, that's another sackable offense. Add him to my list of sackable offenses that I listed today. Having to change a captain, what is it, 5 months? 4 months, maybe something like that, after appointing a new one. Who has ever heard of a manager stripping 2 captains from the captaincy in a matter of a few months? So you didn't think the first one was a good captain. You put a new one, and then 4 months later, everyone was talking about he shouldn't be captain. Get this guy out, man.
I think most people were calling it at the time, though. The captain is either supposed to be a leader by voice or a leader by example. Now, Bruno Fernandes whinges. So I don't think that's who I want leading my players. Someone who has possibly the worst attitude I've seen on a football pitch. And by setting the standards, he's not setting great standards at the minute in terms of the levels of performance and the way he's acting on the football pitch. When if you're a player for United and you're watching your captain strop around, throw his arms up, and then when he gets the ball, waste it, that brushes off on everyone. And then the levels of the whole team come down. I'm not saying Maguire was a good captain because he wasn't. But I don't think there's any leader in that United squad. I don't think that anyone could be the captain of that United squad.
That's another big issue, I think, is when you look around other top teams, I think you can highlight 4 or 5 players where you'd be like, yeah, they'd make a good captain. I think you look at United, and I genuinely, I don't think there's a single player.
I name a couple. He just isn't one of them. He just wasn't one of them. And when
who would yours be?
Here's the issue. I wanted either Varane, Casemiro, or Martinez. Varane was probably the most suitable one. The thing is, he's always injured. But when you really put everything together in terms of personality, it should have been him. Then you got Casemiro, but Casemiro probably doesn't speak a lick of English. So how are you going to have him as a captain in the Premier League and going up to referees when he doesn't even speak English to his teammates? Then you have Lissandro, but he's a bit of a hothead too. So that was also an issue. I honestly think Onana also has he probably has the best leadership skills in the team. I don't think he should be captain because he just came in. But you can
I don't like when keepers are captain, man.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he should be captain, but since we're talking about leaders, I consider him a leader. Because there's a few times, remember when he made that mistake against the Bayern game and he came out and apologized, he asked to speak to the media. That's something that we haven't associated with our captains as of late. He's very vocal on the pitch. And he does lead by example. He made a few mistakes, apologized for it, and then he's become better. So these are the things that you want to lead. So we have a couple leaders at the pitch. Unfortunately, none of them are standouts for you to be like, he should be the captain. And that's probably the issue that you guys are trying to say. Because back then, you could look at our teams. I mean, especially the team that I grew up on. We had Rio was a captain, Evra was a captain, Vidic was a captain, Scholes was a captain, Giggs was a captain. If anyone of them wore the armband, it was easier. Like, yeah, it's easy to point them out. Even Terry, your generation as well, when you were watching Roy Kane and them players, you can point at them and they're like, there's too many leaders. Yap Stam, all these guys were leaders. You look here, you can't really point one out. The fact that we had to pick Bruno as being our captain, succeeding Maguire, just tells you that we don't have enough leaders.
I said it recently about Arsenal, and a few Arsenal fans are talking about Odegaard shouldn't be captain and it should be Declan Rice. You don't need to change the armband when you've got multiple leaders because it's just ceremonial at that point. You're doing the handshake and the twinkos. A leader's a leader with or without the armband. Gary Neville was no more a leader when he got the armband as he was before it. The same as Vidic, the same as Rooney. These guys were leaders before having the armband, and it is another mistake by the manager. And I trusted this manager wholeheartedly. I trusted in what he said. I defended him. He's ended up embarrassing me, and that's not why I'm turning on him. I'm turning on him because I just think he's done now, and it's the most bitter, most painful part about it is that I also know sacking him isn't going to improve us. That's the sad part of being a Man United fan, is that even though you've got to do something like that, there is no light at the end of that tunnel. Even if it turns out we're going to bring Zidane, even if we find Doc Brown's DeLorean and we can fly back to 1984 and bring that Fergie back, I still wouldn't trust it now with the way we're run. I wouldn't be excited. And yeah, it's painful. I said it. Watching Man United is like when you're a kid and the Heartbeat theme tune comes on and you get that dread of going to school the next morning. Every Man United game fills me with just a horrible feeling in my stomach. Viewers, we're going to go back to some of these super chats in a few minutes. Remember, we are sponsored by NordVPN today. And yesterday, you all needed it because YouTube in the UK went down for live streaming. And if you had NordVPN, you could do what I did and a lot of our viewers did. You turn your VPN on. We switched it to, I think some people did Brazil, some did Canada, and you could watch the stream easy. That's another little great feature that I didn't know it would have, but you can do. Of course, you can get all your access to your content wherever you are around the world. I use Setanta Sports so I can get those 3 p.m. kickoff games as well. But I did want to speak to you about something really important to do with NordVPN over the course of November, which is only a day or so away. They're running a Movember campaign. And if you don't know what Movember is essentially, it's a worldwide phenomenon now that's to raise awareness and to raise money for things such as prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's mental health. And what NordVPN are going to be doing over the course of November is donating a proportion of their profits to the Movember cause to help raise money so that men get themselves checked, their prostates, get their testicles checked for cancer, which is a really important thing, even if you are young, to get these things looked at and to get these things checked. Also, when you're on your app or you're using it, you'll be asked whether or not you want to donate any money towards this campaign as well. So look, if you're already using NordVPN, if you can give anything to Movember, please do so. If you're going to sign up or you're thinking of changing your VPN provider, get it done over the course of the next 30 days and help a very, very important cause for men who are their own worst enemy most of the time when it comes to this stuff. They don't talk enough. They don't get themselves checked enough. And someone who's been through a few experiences myself in the last 12 months, please go and get that done. Speaking of balls, Chelsea, I know you've been giving United a bit of laughter, having a bit of a banter, but Chelsea are actually behind Man United in the league right now. I don't think it will last very long, but it was another embarrassing day at home, Don, for you guys. I want to go to the rivals first of all. Rory, a lot of Chelsea fans kind of came for you last week after their draw, just for them to slump to a defeat at home to Brentford. Was this a case of being unlucky on the day, or is this just they've still got major problems they need to fix?
I think they've still got major problems they need to fix. I think against Arsenal they had a dubious penalty and a shanked cross. That was where their 2 goals came from. And when you don't get those in a game, you end up not scoring. Look, it's just no secret that they are lacking a clinical striker, and it will continue to be a problem. I also think, they might be able to get the team up for games like Arsenal, which they played it almost like it was a cup final, but it's the Premier League. You've got to perform at that level week in, week out. So, incredibly, Chelsea fans were already at the point of needing a bit of a humbling after a 2-2 draw at home, and they got it.
Done. You defend your team.
You said rivals, bro, so I'm letting you
all I'll say is, last week I brought up the fact that I didn't think your defence was as strong as it has been in previous seasons, and people tried to get at me over that. And Saturday, once again, your defence got picked apart too easily. There are new issues arising at Chelsea in terms of your defence. I know you didn't have Enzo Fernandez, but he wouldn't have changed in that all. You might have scored, but that he certainly doesn't stop those goals. I look at that first goal. The second goal is your keepers come up, counter-attack, that's fine. But the first one, Ethan Pinnock is Brentford's centre-back, and he has made an unmarked run from centre-back to the edge of your 6-yard box and scored. How is that even allowed to happen for Chelsea?
That back post has been a problem, by the way, Tom, this season. It's been so annoying, that back post, bro. It's been a shambles this season.
Tom's so shocked he's frozen.
It's absolutely stunned.
What's going on there?
He's still thinking about it. Hang on, he's just done an impression of your defenders for that Pinnock goal, to be fair. Just frozen.
Literally.
The thing with Chelsea is that they're a work in progress. Like they will be a genuine threat. Maybe not next season, but the season after that and the season after that. We can all laugh now, but I've said before, there is too much quality in that team for it to fail long term. However, as of right now, they are a very young side, but it's not. I don't even think it's the youth, because Arsenal are also a very young side, but Arsenal are a very mature side, sort of like mature beyond their years in a way, and this Chelsea side are very inexperienced in terms of like not having played with each other for that long of a period. So there are going to be these teething problems. But if I was a Chelsea fan, look, it's obviously not great to lose against Brentford at home, but I still do think there has been some sort of improvement. People can point to, it's only Burnley, it's only Fulham, whoever. But I think that we are now seeing, in large thanks to Cole Palmer being brilliant, that there is light at the end of the tunnel for Chelsea. And if you are a Chelsea fan, you've got to be thinking, well, this is like a sign of things to come. Which, again, just like maybe, as Rory said, maybe a clinical striker if Jackson doesn't come out, maybe like another player here or there sort of thing. So, yeah, Chelsea this season, I'd be surprised if they got like, top 6 or whatever. But again, next year, the season after, that's when they will be coming. And it's almost like, I get the feeling it's sort of like an inevitable thing with like the fact that owner is very willing to back the manager in terms of like the transfers. So I say we can laugh now, and that's great, that's lovely. but Chelsea are coming, I fear, in stuff like 2 or 3 years.
Spot on. Listen, go on, Staffy. Go on, bro.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Don. I'm starting to question Poch, and you know, like when you guys hired him in the summer, I was one of the few that comes on here on the top 6, and I kind of supported the idea of hiring him over the other candidates. I stated my reasons so many times, but the more I'm listening to Chelsea fans, obviously I watch the games, but the more I watch games and listen to Chelsea fans, I'm now starting to have my own doubts and my questions, because if we talk about last game just in isolation, just last game, Disasi in the right back when you have 2 right backs on the bench. Earlier in the season, it was Colwell in left back when you had Chilwell available, but he's playing left wing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just 2 examples. I'm not even going to talk about the quality of some of the players being good enough or not good enough. That's not the point. I'm hearing Sterling playing on the left wing when he should be playing on the right because he's been better on the right, or is it the other way around?
He can play either, to be fair.
But where has he been at his best? Because I heard a lot of Chelsea fans question why he got switched. He played on the left last game, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Start of the season, he was smashing it on the right, wasn't he?
On the right, exactly.
He has had a good performance on the left as well against Burnley. He played very well there.
But that's what I'm saying. This is another question being raised. Same as when Enzo was playing as the 10, and even you yourself were saying, you know what, he shouldn't be in the 10. That's not his best ability. But then you also had eventually, you guys were saying Cole Palmer should be playing in the 10. Then he starts playing in the 10. I just feel like there's too many occurrences by the manager and his decision. That's just the personnel, by the way. I remember the beginning of the season where he was being a little bit more defensive, playing with 3 center backs when you guys were playing with 4 in the back during the preseason. I feel like there's been so many times where people are questioning not his signings, not the stuff that we criticize Ten Hag for, but it's more of like, why are you putting this player in the wrong position when you have someone else available? And that's something that is starting to, I wouldn't say worry me because I don't care. I'm not a Chelsea fan, so it doesn't really worry me like that. But these are the questions that I'm starting to raise and looking at. And I'm like, okay, is he doing the wrong thing? Because clearly he has enough players in this team. He's been back. Yes, I understand there's some injuries. When they come back, I understand. Nkunku comes back and all that. I get it. That is Sheely. I get all that. That's not the part I'm talking about. But it's simple questions as why is Disasi a right back? When I heard Disasi played in right back, by the way, I was so confused. That's like us putting Maguire in right back.
Bro,
it's just so weird.
It's like playing a magnet. It's like playing a magnet at right back, bro. No
That's what I'm saying.
Whatsoever.
It made no sense. Not just the overlap. I just associate Disasi with good reading of the game, but no pace. That's the same. That's what I'm looking at. I mean, it reminds me a lot of Maguire. If we ever put Maguire on in the right back spot, everyone would be confused because we'd be like, listen, as much as we don't rate him, we know what he's meant to be good at, and playing as a right back is not it. Especially when you have Reece James and Gusto sitting on the bench. And granted, let's say Reece James is coming back from injury. I get all that. Why are you not going with the other guy who's played magnificently against Arsenal, bar that one mistake where he fell asleep on the far post? Why are you taking him out of the line and you're playing a center back there? Because that's the same thing you were doing when you were putting Colwell in left back. And everyone was like, no, Colwell has been amazing in the left center back position with Brighton last season. That's where he played in preseason. Put him back there. Why does he keep doing these little mistakes that eventually cost you the 3 points? And then he fixes it the next game, but then he does something else wrong. Like he always does something and then undoes something else. And I feel like that's been the theme of the first 10 games.
Facts. Listen, before I cook Poch, listen, no excuses whatsoever. There's no excuses. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of that lineup. Staffy, you're right. The balance at the back wasn't great. You know, Disasi coming in at right back, the only explanation I gave you lot is the height thing. But again, why have you got a handbrake up? Don't worry about the opposition too much, especially Brentford. Do you know what I mean? Let them worry about us and how we can attack them. Do you know what I'm saying? So I wasn't happy with the balance at the back, but I did say the attack was more than enough to win this game. You know, we created enough chances. This game alone, Cole Palmer created 4 chances this game. Do you know what I'm saying? Sterling, he's an experienced player. He wasn't burying them. Cucurella, again, he couldn't bury his chance. Do you know what I'm saying? Jackson, he was poor this game, but again, he's another raw player. You know what I mean? Even when we brought him in, I said we still need to bring in another striker to help someone like a Jackson to develop and get better. And then in the second half, as always this season, we go down, we can see the goal, like Tom's mentioned there, and then we just can't unlock teams because by then teams shot off shot, and then we just can't beat that low block. Do you know what I mean? And then the same thing happens again the following week if we concede first. So this is the problem that we've got right now. The players aren't taking responsibility, and this is exactly why when Terry was asking me, "Do you think Chelsea have turned the corner?" I said the sample size isn't large enough. I said I need to see more to actually say if Chelsea have turned the corner. I'm taking it game by game, is literally what I said. But I went in the game confident that I would beat Brentford. Because in that first half, Liverpool get those chances, they're burying them. Arsenal get those chances, they're burying them. Do you know what I'm saying? Højlund gets those chances, even he's burying them. Because you lot aren't feeding Højlund right now. That's the problem with Man United. Do you know what I'm saying? So I've got to blame the players there for not taking responsibility in front of goal. But going back to Poch, man, like, again, he's taken 5 steps back, man. He does things correctly for one game, then he goes back to being reserved, you know, playing 3 centre-backs, messing up the balance of the team. If you watch the game, yeah, Palmer was telling Disasi so many times, bro, go forward, like, break that line. And Disasi was just not trying to break the line because he's a centre-back. He's not trying to go forward. Do you know what I mean? You had 2 right-backs, like you've said, Staffy, already. Pretty much, I would have said the exact same thing about the right-backs. You've covered it. Why are you still playing people out of position? Do you know what I mean? Why are you going with Conor Gallagher in a pivot against a low block? Gallagher doesn't work in a pivot, and he never will. Do you know what I'm saying? So these are little decisions, in-game management, the lineups. They're just not banging right now. And the annoying part is, as much as we've got injuries to Lavia, to Nkuku, to players like that, we've still got more than enough. This is why I haven't come on here once and complained about the injuries, because we've still got more than enough. Do you know what I'm saying? So Poch needs to fix up, man. His in-game management has been quite poor. His lineups have been quite poor. But again, I'm not running away from the fact that we're creating chances. And now they're clearer cut chances, which I've been begging for. These players need to start burying them. Do you know what I mean? So,
by the way,
listen,
that last minute goal also. I mean, listen, I know the game was already lost there. Don't get me wrong. But when you start to get fed up with a manager, you start remembering the moments that you were embarrassed the most. You see how I'm sitting here? I'm talking about Ten Hag. I did this on a space earlier. I'm like, bro, I had to hold 7 to Liverpool last season, 6 to City, and I start listing all the embarrassments that I felt because of Ten Hag, because I'm at a point where I'm fed up with him. This one was very embarrassing. It's not quite as losing to your rival, don't get me wrong, but when you see how you guys can see the last minute goal, your goal is empty, and Sanchez just falling and tumbling on himself like that, falling over her face. It's just so embarrassing that you reach that point in the game against Brentford in the league. That's not a cup final. That's not a Champions League final. It's not a game that you need to win or it's over for you. This is just a regular game in the league in week 10, and you guys suffered that embarrassment at home. I think that's eventually going to look at these.
Actually, Don, sorry, I was going to get on that. I get what you said, Don. I think the way you played football, your approach play was fine. Not finishing chances, putting people in the wrong positions, but you still had enough to beat them. Even with the Sarsi at right back, you still, all those things that Poch kind of got wrong, you still should have won. I think where the frustration should come in and the embarrassment should come in is it comes off the back of a very good performance against Arsenal. And whenever you're in those growth periods that you are now and you get one of those really good results, winning that next game is so key. And I think it's why Arsenal fans were so disappointed to draw against you, because they're just beating City.
Yeah.
And if they're gone and beaten you, it's a different feeling, a different emotion you grow from. And I think that would, if I was a Chelsea fan, that would be the bit that would be grinding my gears the most. Is we just had a really good performance against Arsenal. What you need to do is come out and play like that again, score some goals and say, look, we're on our way back up. But instead you've damaged that confidence of that group, that very young and sometimes vulnerable group again.
Exactly. And this goes back to my point. Again, I'm not blaming the loss due to playing people out of position. I'm not saying that, Terry. You're right in what you're saying. Yeah, we had enough chances to bury this game. But all I'm saying is, if you're putting out a balanced team, you will play better, bro. Like Madueke, he had a poor game, but he was literally being doubled up on, and Disasi wasn't helping him, bro. If you had a Gusto behind him there, or even a Reece James helping him, he could have gone into the half spaces. Reece James drags the player out. Now it's a one-on-one situation. Do you know what I mean? These are little things that will help these young players. This is why I want to see a balanced lineup. I just want to see 2 centre-backs. I want to see a left-back. I want to see a right-back. I don't want to see Gallagher in a pivot, playing further up. It's not too much that we're asking for right now. All these players are fit right now, right? So the minimum, the bare minimum that you can do is play people in their normal position as a bare minimum, okay? And then we kick on from there, right? But this needs to fix up. And I'm just praying that in January we go ham and go get a striker. We need to go get a Tony. If we don't get that, try and go get Osimhen, because we definitely need goals in this team, man. 100%. I'm looking at some of the chances we've had this season. If Nkuku has had them, he's not missing. If Tony's had them, he's not missing. Osimhen, these guys are not missing. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not all doom and gloom, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not like a Lukaku situation before where people were like, oh, this is the final piece of the puzzle. Back then, we weren't creating chances, Terry. We were struggling. Our chance creation was coming from Reece James and Ben Chilwell. But now it's coming from the wingers, it's coming from the midfield. So we are creating chances. We just need to bury these chances. Do you know what I'm saying? So we just have to pray that in January we go and get a striker, man. We need someone. We need Tony more than Arsenal. I'll be real with you, because they're scoring goals regardless. We don't score goals. We don't score goals. So we need to go out there and be aggressive, man. 100%.
This is I started to think Todd has a big say in who plays where. I've seen it with Potter. It's not all Poch. Todd is way too involved. Do Chelsea fans think that, like, that Todd Bowley's picking the team?
Of course he's not. That's just silly.
Isn't this the same man who told Thomas Tuchel he'd play a 4-4-3?
Todd Bowley's not involved in any footballing activities or anything like that. He's just more on the money side of things. It's Poch. Poch making his decisions.
You can tell it's Poch making the decision because it's what we used to see him do sometimes at Tottenham. I just think he's trying to overcompensate in certain areas.
Facts.
For weird reasons. Like, I get why he played this Sassy, because he wanted someone to deal with Mbeumo. So you'd have Mbeumo running the channel, and you'd have a centre back and a right back there to deal with him. But
guess what, Tom? You conceded a goal. You conceded a goal.
More pressure that side.
You conceded a goal at the back post when you wanted a little bit of height in the team. So what's the point of that then? It's not like we're winning these games with playing people out of position. What's the point? What's the point of adding more height and then you concede from a goal like that?
I think Chelsea fans should be more up in arms about the state of that first goal. I've never seen it before where a centre-back's allowed to make an unmarked run from their own half to the opposition 6-yard box and head it in at the back post. That is an embarrassment in itself. The fact no one's picked them up, the fact no one's called them out, at no point is anyone sort of tried to put an arm on him to stop him or delay him or call something else. Pinnock has ran from his own half to the back post and nodded it in. And that's where you know the best chance.
It nearly happened. It nearly happened shortly before as well. That's the crazy part.
But that's where you say, how many times has Disasi played at right back in his career? I'd imagine based on his
Once,
yeah, exactly. Bro. So, but exactly, and then you get mistakes like that because Disasi's not experienced in dealing with those sort of back post runs whilst playing as a right back. So. Yeah, what he says.
I think he just needs to every single position I want to see now. I want to see someone that knows that position in and out. Do you know what I mean? That's the absolute basics of football. Play people in their normal position, and then we can kick on. But again, that's not an excuse. We need to be burying these chances, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Poch is trying to experiment with the back three. We held the ball a lot when we have 3 centre backs, more possession, no space to attack. AMT says made changes because he is disrespecting Brentford. Fergie did show it's possible to win the title in Champions League under the Glazers.
The structure and squad was already in place though before they turned up. To be fair, I can't think of too many huge signings that Fergie was permitted to make under the Glazers. Like in terms of like the British records he broke, I don't think he did. In fact, no, he didn't make any when the Glazers were in charge. They were all pre-Glazer.
Yeah,
it's not just that. Can we stop acting like what Sir Alex and David Gill especially were doing on their own to run this club was normal? Because when you really look at it, the best analogy is like when you have a mom and pop shop versus like a Walmart. Eventually, listen, you're gonna have good business by you running everything in your small business. I mean, United wasn't small, but the way they ran this club on their own was not anything comparable to how an elite structure, as we see City now, as we see Madrid for years, as we see Bayern for years, the way these clubs are ran versus Sir Alex and David Gill running us on their own showed massively how back in the day we are. Because if we had a perfect structure like City have right now, like most big clubs have right now, whereas any manager leaves, any manager comes in, any CEO leaves, any CEO comes out, any man in his position leaves, gets replaced, and the structure is still okay, and the business is still running well. If we had that with Sir Alex and the Glazers back when he was there, this would have never happened to us. We were, and I keep saying this, and I'm gonna say this on this channel because this is gonna be the first time I say this. Stop saying we won with the Glazers. Say we won in spite of the Glazers, because that's exactly what it was. We won in spite of the Glazers, and that's why the minute Sir Alex left, it looked like he was working magic.
Could not agree more. And so just to add on that, that's why the situation with Ten Hag upsets me My view was always, look, Ten Hag should come in. We should adopt the way he wants to play football, but then we stick to it for a prolonged period of time, with or without him. We're not doing that. Do you know the Glazers keep trying to replicate a Fergie? They let every new manager gets full control, and that's the wrong thing to do. And the irony is, when they're fully back there, no, they're not, because it's the wrong thing to do. Sometimes giving somebody, like, you're not a great parent because you give your kid too much freedom. Sometimes too much freedom for your child is bad for them. And the same could be said when you run a business. You give your staff too much freedom, problems can arise. We give our managers too much power. And I don't know I can't speak for the whole of the world, but even in the eras where the English managers, the Cloughs and the Paisleys and the Fergies ran the football club, they were head coach and they were the manager of running the football club. I don't know if that actually existed on the continent. So the point is, and we know now that the young managers in England are not trained to do that. That was a skill set that does not exist anymore in football. Pep Guardiola, look how great he is as a coach. He's not a manager. He's a head coach. And that's not a dig. That's the truth. They don't manage the football club. Fergie did. We keep giving the managers that come to our club, we try and get them to manage the football club. It's dumb. They should be a head coach managing a project that's already in place before them. But anyway, I don't want to go back onto United.
What's this about Chelsea being deducted points? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's not looking good.
Nah, it's mirror football, man. I feel like that's gonna happen.
Well, where's that come from?
Came from the Times. So Bowley and that. So Bowley and that handed themselves into financial irregularities from before they arrived, and one of those is that in 2013, when they signed Willian and Eto'o, they were simultaneously making payments to Russian entities and offshore accounts that coincided with. So, like, they bought Willian from Anzhi Makachkala from Russia, and it was like a few months after Anzhi bought Willian from Shakhtar for 30 million, and then Chelsea also bought him for 30 million. It was like there'd be no normal reason for Anzhi to make no profit on that sale, but at the same time, money was going to a Russian entity, and then they got Eto'o on a free, and at the same time, money was going, and so they've uncovered that. Like, Chelsea's argument is, well, it happened before the current ownership, but then the argument will be that because of those payments, they avoided breaching FFP, and therefore, just because it was previous owners, the club itself still benefited. So.
Finished out here?
Owner isn't relevant. Yeah, Rory's right. It's the entity that's relevant rather than the fact that it happened under a. So even though Bowley didn't have anything to do with it, if it's true, I don't know enough about this, but if it is true, then yeah, the fact that it happened in the past isn't the point. The fact that it happened is the point. Rory's right.
Oh, wow. Yes, from the Times originally, yeah, it says here that Chelsea are being investigated over the transfer of Willian. So as the club could face sanctions from the Premier League, such as heavy fines and points deductions. Ooh.
Relegation battle.
Because that's what Chelsea need right now, isn't it?
Do you know how good a game that would be, right? Chelsea versus City in the National League, right? After they're kicked out for their cheating. By the way, I hope Man United have cheated and we get kicked down there. We might win some bloody games. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it could be good for us. Playing against Thurrock and whoever else is down there.
Thurrock. Yeah. Do you know what though? This just shows you, Terry. Like, everyone's saying, "Oh, Chelsea are gonna get done by FFP." Like, the new ownership are literally snitching on themselves. Like, this ain't the first time they've done it either. They've done it for a few irregular payments before as well. They got a fine on that. They got a slap on the wrist for that one. We'll see what happens, innit? We'll see what happens.
We will. We'll be there for it. What do you think United's next 3-step plan should be? Sell the club.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've talked about it. It's a cash-22. Like, before the interview, there were probably two reasons to keep Ten Hag. One, because you hope the style of play is going to happen. Two, because it's a marriage of convenience. Because if you get rid of him, bring in another manager, you've then got like players from 5 different managers. Now you've got the first one. So yeah, it's tricky.
No, I totally get that. Don cooking Man United and forgot about Messi Chelsea is what Pete says here. Guna Paul says, Chatty Patty, hear me out. 2 to 3 years of deployment and growth for Saliba and Mickey van der Ven. Stick them both in the same team as centre-backs. What a duo. I mean, unless they both go to Real Madrid or Barcelona, that's not going to... Can you imagine? They're both very, very good. This here says, hindsight is a beautiful thing. Should have just bought 2 or 3 players in the summer of 2022, and they foul, i.e. Willian, get rid and buy a few more in January. Terry wanting to win games in the lower leagues. Just want to win some games, Kate. I'm depressed. Even when we win games, I've got sport depression. That's what happens. But there we go. Obviously, it weren't really big stories this weekend. Well, City winning was, but it was more, again, United and everything else. Arsenal, brilliant win for them. Liverpool winning again yesterday. I want to ask you all the questions. We know how good your teams are. Are Spurs with you guys? I know Patty ain't here anymore, but like you guys know how good you are. And we talk a lot of Arsenal. We spoke a lot of Liverpool recently. Are Spurs with you guys, or according to Dom Hassan, they are the imposters in this situation? What are you saying, Rory?
I don't want to call them the imposters, but I do feel like there are certain advantages that the other three clubs have got that Spurs don't have going into it. City have obviously got immense experience and the best squad. Chelsea have got that experience as a club. They know how to do it. Yes, a lot of those players that did it previously, or some of those players that did it previously, have moved on, but they've still got a lot of that core. And Arsenal had that experience last year. And I think that's the one thing that when the going gets tough, and I know they're not playing in Europe, but when the going gets tough, I don't know if Spurs have got that, and that lack of squad depth as well when the injuries hit. I think will be the problem. So I wouldn't say they're the imposters, but I think it's more likely than not that it slowly goes from a 4-horse race to a 3-horse race.
Yeah, imposters definitely too harsh. Like, they deserve to be where they are. They have been fantastic, but long term, I'd be amazed because they don't have like the facilities, they don't have the squad depth, they don't have the experience in terms of manager, in terms of personnel to properly mount a title challenge. And to be fair to Spurs fans, I don't think many realistically think they are going to, be in a title race. I think they'd be more than happy with, 4th place, finishing in the Champions League spots and having a successful season like that. And then maybe, a few years, maybe then being that team. But yeah, there's a pretty big gulf between Spurs and then Arsenal, Liverpool, City.
Yeah, I think I said Chelsea. I meant Liverpool, by the way.
No, yeah. I look at that Tottenham squad. It's a good top 4 squad, but it lacks what it needs for a title challenge, especially against 3 sides that are looking back to, if not close to, their best. Like, all 3 of our sides are performing at very high levels. Tottenham have started the season very well. Not going to knock them for that. But when it gets to December and you've got to play 8 games in a month, add on top of that FA Cup, I just wonder, is that squad depth at Tottenham good enough? You take certain players out of the team, that drop in quality is too much. Van der Ven and Romero have been a fantastic partnership. You take out Van der Ven for a game because he needs a rest. And is it Eric Dyer? Is Eric Dyer third choice? Is someone who hasn't even played this season because the manager doesn't rate him? These issues, they might be able to address some of them in Jan, but I believe they lack the squad depth. And I believe they lack the key big name statement sign that I think every single side makes before they become a title challenger. With Arsenal, I think it was Declan Rice this summer. Real statement, get one of the best DMs in the world. With us, it was Van Dijk and Alisson. With City, it was that it was that window under Pep in 2017 where he spent like 200 million on fullbacks, but that got all the pieces that Pep needed to go and get 100 points. I don't know when Tottenham are going to have that window because I don't think the owners want to. I think the owners would love to win a title by signing 30 to 40 million pound players, and that doesn't happen anymore. Football doesn't work like that. So, they could do it in a couple of years, but I don't know if they will because of the ownership, and they won't do it this year because they haven't got the squad for it.
I also think, I feel like all 3 of us probably feel like our team has at least another gear to kick into. Like, I don't think any of us feel like our team's actually playing as best. Whereas I think with Spurs, it feels like they're flying at the moment and they're riding the crest of that wave. And at some point, those performances won't be at the very top.
They're also playing under no pressure. Like, no one had any expectations. People predicting, maybe even 6th or 7th this season. If they're in the same position, like halfway through the season, that's when we actually have a genuine conversation about, now you are in a title race. And that is what separates the men from the boys in terms of can you actually continue to do that? So I think right now they're not playing under any pressure. And it is that thing of, towards the business end of the season, can you maintain that winning mentality?
I don't think they're at their best yet, Tottenham, but I also don't think they've got many more gears they can go to. If I was to put it, I think Tottenham are in 4th gear, 5th gear, whereas I think that all of us are in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I've not seen a top performance from us this season. I don't think City have had many top performances. I think the second half yesterday was a very good one, but that's not the best of the best City. I don't think Arsenal are anywhere near top gear. And when it works for them, it works so much better. I just don't think there's enough. Tottenham can't reach the same heights that we can, and they're not going to build up a big enough gap from us in first, second, and third gear to where it's going to be insurmountable. So they'll have a good season. This is the season they needed. 100% is the season they needed to have. But
yeah,
it's not a title season.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't like the word imposter. I asked it because I've seen people using it online and fans talking about it. But and Arsenal were the team I was going to mention first here, that they haven't been at their scintillating best this year. Don kind of alluded to it earlier. I keep seeing people talk about how they've not been as good, they're not as clinical, they're not as exciting, they're not as fast paced, and I don't see why people are looking at that as a positive. As my team are in the mud, I've got no dog in the fight this year. But I don't even think if fifth gear is the best you can be, Arsenal right now they're grinding the gear between first and second. And there's so much more to come because we've seen this team do it. And yet, in my personal opinion, it's a better start to the season because the season isn't just the Prem than last year. Yes, they're 3 points worse off, but they're level on points with Man City. Started the Champions League well. Yes, they had that defeat to is it Len or Ren? Lens. Okay, cool. Yeah, terrible French. Yeah. Anyway, them right. FC Lens. So Cockney, right? But they went away to Sevilla and won, and they're in the next round of the Carabao Cup. Overall, it's been a better start to the season without being at their scintillating best. Where I do think Tottenham right now, and I mean this with respect, are playing, as you've already alluded to, at their optimum best. I think that City have still, of course, got more gears to go up. I don't think they've got anywhere near their best. Liverpool, I think, are playing close to it. I do. That's why I don't think Liverpool are going to win the league this year. But I do. I already said top four. I just think Arsenal and City are going to go to another level, and I think it will be City, then Arsenal, then Liverpool, then Tottenham in that order. But I think there'll be a little gap between Liverpool and Tottenham, and then a little gap between you two and Liverpool at this moment in time. Unless Liverpool go out in January and buy more. If they go out and get a top centre back and maybe another DM or something like that, then maybe it will change. But yeah, I kind of the Arsenal stuff's kind of weird to look at. Like, they've started well, they're winning, and people are kind of laughing at them because they've not been amazing yet. I'm like, they've got 24 points and you laugh. I don't understand. It's confusing to me from the outside in. Like, Liverpool are getting their praise, which they deserve. Spurs are. City are City. But Arsenal are up there with them, and everybody seems to be talking about them like they're scrubs. It's kind of strange to me.
Yeah, I think the importance of the Sheffield win, because obviously everyone goes, oh, it's just Sheffield United. And in fairness, City needed a late winner against them. Spurs needed 2 late winners against them. So they've put up good performances against big teams. But I think the big thing about that Sheffield game was that we rotated like 4 or 5 players. We brought in, obviously, Eddie Nketiah, Smith Rowe, Jakob Kivior, players that aren't going to play as many minutes this season. And we still put on a performance like that. And that's the one thing we couldn't do as much last season. Like, last season, you knew what the starting 11 was going to be week in, week out if they were fit. And ultimately, that led to that kind of burnout at the end of the season. So I think holding that energy in reserve in games like that where you can is another one of those things that will help take you to that extra step later in the season.
And Arsenal definitely finished like at least second this season. The reason why I don't think Liverpool will be up there towards the end is I think that Liverpool have a slightly lower cap in terms of what their potential is this season, because in my opinion, they do need a proper out-and-out defensive midfielder in those bigger games, especially. Whereas, and I think that, towards the later stages of the season, we will see that come into play. Whereas Arsenal, City, not really hindered by the same squad issues, if you will. And as we've discussed before, both sides clearly have at least 1, 2, 3 more gears to go to. Neither side has played the football that we saw, when they're at their best last season, for example. Both sides can definitely take it to another level. I think it's just a question of when will, which side will fully click first. And that might actually settle, the title race ultimately. If Arsenal, from here on out, click and it all flows brilliantly, then City will be in trouble. Conversely, if like City just now decide to go on their, run of like winning 15 in a row, which they're more than capable of doing, and potentially leave like Arsenal in their wake, it's just going to be a question of who clicks first, really.
I think the big thing for Arsenal this year will be how the Champions League campaign goes, because I think for Arsenal, they need to build momentum. And I think that was where it stagnated last year. There was just so long in between games that all the stuff that the media was saying about how they're going to bottle this, it had time to marinate and get in heads. Whereas if you're playing Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, you're winning those games, that breeds confidence, that breeds momentum. I think that's the best thing for a young Arsenal side. Whereas City, they could do it where they're just playing one game a week. They've got the experience. When we were challenging City, we needed to go far in Europe because it just allowed you to build momentum and keep the good atmosphere and get players play time, this, that, and the other. I don't see any reason why any Arsenal fan would sit there right now and suggest they just want to get out of any competitions, because barring injuries, which is the lottery anyway, there's no reason to not want to go far in a cup. I think this Arsenal squad needs to win something. And if you could do it, if you could win the Carabao Cup, for example, going into the last months of the season, if you're still neck and neck with City, that's such a big boost for a young side. So I think if they have a good campaign in Europe, if they're able to have a decent run of domestic cup, unlike last year where it was, going out in the first round, get knocked out in the last 16, the Europa League. If you're able to go far in a couple of those, you'll see a hell of a lot more in terms of the end of the season level, because it'll just be heads focused, laser focused, get playing, winning football because of the momentum.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. And look, I think I mentioned with Liverpool, like, I watched the first part of yesterday's game, and then obviously United started, and you look really, really good yesterday. And this Liverpool team is, look, Klopp made those changes again, moving Trent on the inside. He's rejuvenated the midfield this summer. He's kind of reacted to sort of his mistakes in terms of not replenishing that area soon enough, not always keeping Trent out in those defensive areas where he was struggling because you didn't have the cover from the midfield. And I think he's made some brilliant signings of Soboslai, of Gravenberch of this world. And, Darwin's still coming into his own. And I also think, by the way, when Darwin, where you guys could close that gap even further on City is if Darwin clicks fully this year. I think he's going to click fully next year. But if he could start to convert more of those chances that he gets, that could also be a massive game changer, because Salah's always going to score an assist, but he's adding that extra layer of goals to your team as well. And I think there's such a player in there that's just almost waiting to kind of break through and come and become consistent. And yeah, he's a danger watching him play.
I think we can get away with them missing the chances if you're able to play, or if you're able to get the levels of goals out of Jota that we can get to, because that will pick up the slack. He scores goals he shouldn't really. So it balances out in the swing of things. I do think, though, whilst I think we can win the title, I think you go out in January and you get a DM, whether it's this Andre fella from Brazil or this Fernandez fella from Argentina, whoever it is, you're able to go and get a DM in January. That frees up McAllister to play the position you actually wanted to play him in when you signed him. I think there's another level that it can go to then. It might help Trent invert because he's got a more natural DM. He's got a little bit more freedom. He doesn't have to worry about protecting the fellas that left of him. We're not there yet, but the fact that we are performing at the level we are, I believe we can sneak it. If for whatever reason City were to struggle and stumble for a couple of games and the door was to open up, I believe we could get there, but we're certainly not the favourites for it, because I just think there's still a couple problem areas. And whilst we'll outscore teams, we do invite a lot of chances and opportunities against us in areas which you don't really want. I mean, for all the attacking talent we have got Kostas Tsimikas playing at centre back, so that it sort of swings around. Well, the perfect January is getting a Hinge Cape and an Andre, and then all of a sudden everything opens up. But I don't believe we get both. So if you're just getting a DM, I think there's the problems.
Yeah, Maradon here says Nunes already has 6 Prem goals. He doesn't. He has 4, and they've come in 3 games. So listen, it's not a bad return, scoring in 30% of your games. But when I talk about someone like him clicking, I think he's the kind of player that can score, one every 2 games, or a goal every 2 games. And I think once you start getting to that level, there's difference there. And obviously, brilliant to get that brace against Newcastle. His next goal was against West Ham in a 3-1 win, and then he scored one of the goals against Nottingham Forest. From a Premier League point of view, I think there's much more to come from him. And if you've got a Mo Salah scoring at that rate, and you add another player to it, like when you had Mane, it just changes things massively. You become an even more potent and scary side from an attacking point of view. This year says, even though they cheated FFP, I can at least say that Man City's owners personally invested their team to win. The Glazers haven't invested a single dollar.
But it's not even an FFP issue. It's an accounting claim. Why can't people just do their research?
Thanks, Charlie.
115 of them.
I know, but if you're going to do that, like at least understand the context. It's not even a question of FFP. This is what I mean. This is why education is so important, guys.
Love it. Is there anyone on here that thinks no other team will win the league as long as Guardiola is here? Also, advice about being an aspiring broadcaster like me. Keep working hard, work out what you want to be, is in terms of what type of broadcaster, and then just keep working hard, dedicate every single day. Don't take time off very often, and just stop going out, stop seeing your friends, stop seeing your family, and work hard. That's a bit of a joke there at the end. Don't go that mad. You need downtime as well. Is anyone going to stop Guardiola winning the league again? Nobbins.
I was just going to say before, because like Tom was talking about the squad building that's going on at Liverpool. Whether Liverpool, are there or not in the title race this season, we can debate that. But they are definitely going to be there next season, in my opinion. They are just, I think, they're just a few players away. As we've talked about the defensive midfielder, maybe another full-back option, maybe another centre-half option, whatever. But the pieces are there to mount a proper challenge. And I've not shied away from the fact that I've said many times on this channel that I'm very, very scared of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool when he's given the right tools and when things are clicking at that club. So definitely Klopp. I'm still, the jury's still out on Arteta for me, because I haven't seen enough of it. I'm totally willing to be proven, differently on that if he does the business this season. But I know that Klopp can do that. He's done it even when he didn't win it. He pushed City to the last game of the season. So yeah, I'm as I said, I make no mistake about it. I'm very scared of the prospect of Klopp's Liverpool next season with a more functional midfield, and as I say, with more depth in those defensive areas as well. Yeah, I'm scared, to be fair.
It's a good point. This is a weird comment from Molu. He says, the way you big up Højlund yet disrespectful towards Darwin, personally, I think it's because he turned you down. GA, salty comments from Terry. I didn't think I was rude about him. I just said I said he's really dangerous. I said he's really good. There's a brilliant player that's going to break through. And in fact, last season, when everybody was saying how crap and rubbish he was, I was defending him. And I said, there's a player in there. He's always in the right spaces. So I've had a bit of banter with him, but which is normal. But again, my friend, yes, I haven't said he's the best striker in the world or anything, but I've not been disrespectful towards Darwin in any way, any shape, or in any form. Least of all on this show today. I said there's a brilliant player ready to break out, and 4 Premier League goals after 10 games is good. I said it was good, but I think there's a player in there that could be on 5, 6, 7, 8 at this point, and I think that player's in there. But yeah, anyway.
I think he just needs to get more minutes as well, because he's made 10 appearances, but I think like 6 or 7 of them have been off the bench. So once he starts getting more consistent starts, which it'll be when he starts getting over these knocks and when there's less international breaks, hopefully I would expect that the ratio would average out a little bit more. Which
also shows you, and I know some of it's been travel, but which also shows you Klopp agrees with me, because Klopp isn't starting him every single game yet, which means there's still a player ready to break out. And your own manager's actions are proof that what I'm saying is not salt, it's the facts. Love it when everyone is sleeping on Liverpool's midfield. Sorry, love it when everyone sleeping Liverpool midfield is being slept on. It's starting to cook.
Maybe. I mean, time will tell. As I say, I still think there are issues in there over the course of a long term. But I mean, yeah, there's obviously lots of talent in there. But in my opinion, it is still missing one key piece, which we've discussed.
We've got loads of 8 talents. In terms of a rotation of 8, I'm happy with Szoboszlai, happy with McAllister, happy with Jones, happy with Gravenberch. He's really surprised me how good he actually is. But DM-wise, I mean, you can even add Thiago into that, but he's, not dead. But DM-wise, you're looking at Bajcetic, who I think is good, but very raw, still struggling with injury problems. Endo, who is 31, not at the level. He's all right. He's probably a lovely lad, but he's not someone who I'd want to start in DM at the Etihad. and then McAllister, who isn't a DM. So there is a quite gaping hole, which does affect everyone because that's the main chance. It stops chances getting towards the back line. It gives Trent a little bit more freedom and license to invert. We're doing well with our midfield. It could be even better. But we've hit, for me, the peak of what this midfield can do because there's only so far you can go without a good DM. It's why everyone's spending 100 million on them.
Exactly. I think players like McAllister are good enough for most games that you'll face in the Premier League. I think it's probably only when you come up against an Arsenal or a City or a Rodri and a Rice that not having that 6 is going to lose you the midfield battle and probably or potentially lose you the game. I think, for the rest of the games that you'll have, the talents that you've got that are predominantly 8s but versatile enough will be enough, which they have been so far this season.
I think it's going to be an interesting one to just watch how we manage it out because I think we're trying to move to a more system he wants to do where like everyone can play everywhere if needed. And whilst I think that's very good against the low opposition because it just causes issues with if someone's trying to man mark someone, they've got to follow them all around the pitch. It's very good at that. When you're up against a City, I do like the idea of having a more traditional DM who can sit at the base and help break up these attacks because there are points in games. Even when I thought we were fine against Tottenham until the red card, even afterwards down to 10 men, I thought we were fine.
Yeah, you'd have won that game, but yeah,
if you got a DM there who can just sit and free everyone else up, you go up another level, as we saw when we got rid of Henderson for the first time, put Fabinho in. All of a sudden, the levels increase. You go and win Champions League titles, and you're able to put your better players in the actual position. We just need to do that again.
Yep, there we go. I want to thank everyone who's tuned into the show tonight. My panel, amazing as ever. My viewers, thank you very much indeed. My super chatters, you're the best. Please smash the like button before you leave and make sure you get signed up to NordVPN. Protect yourselves online. Make sure you get access to all your content wherever you are around the world. It's very, very cheap. It's as much as a cup of coffee will cost you for the entire month. And they are donating money throughout the whole of November to Movember, raising money and awareness towards men talking more about their mental health and getting stuff such as their prostates checked, their testicles checked for cancer, and other horrible things that can happen to us. So please go and support that. We did have another super chat that's just come through as well that says, I think McAllister plays for Liverpool a lot like Carrick did for United, can play through lines. That's a big compliment. It's a big compliment. Michael Carrick is elite, but no, he's very good, McAllister, so far. Listen, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in. Take care. Goodbye. God bless.